The world turns, and with each turn, a change. And each change makes it more complex, unpredictable, enigmatic. The world keeps turning. And from the Pellicer and Heredia practice, we anticipate everything that is going to happen. Brexit, artificial intelligence, new commercial borders, legal tech. The world keeps turning, and it commands the reliance on international lawyers who are capable of interpreting this new reality with integrity, honesty, and transparency, offering answers to so many new questions. Whatever it is, ask us. At Pellicer and Heredia, we know how.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you very much for joining us today in March here in Spain, or probably you might be listening all around the world. Today is a privilege to have with us a specialist in the panel, and we've got on one side Pedro. Hello, Pedro.
Hello, Ignacio. Well, good afternoon, everyone. Well, good afternoon to say that because the climate today is not as good as we would like. But obviously, we are going to make a guideline of how to, start the process of applying for a non-lucrative visa. Easy, a quick, summarized process to apply for the non-lucrative visa. And we will be explaining that and answering you all the questions that you may have. Ignacio.
Thank you, Pedro. Yes, it is a pleasure, as I say, to have with us today in the panel a very important person who's been helping the expat community very many years ago. He could tell us is Richard Hill. Hello, Richard. Can you hear us here and see?
Hello, Ignacio. Hello, Pedro. And hello, everybody who's listening.
Hello, Richard.
Thank you for inviting me. And let's see what we can do.
Well, thank you, Richard. I may take this opportunity to say in public, thank you for helping so many people. You are a non-lucrative association that you've been helping the expat community, and you're doing on an ongoing time during all this pandemic, before the Brexit, after the Brexit. And thank you very much for giving accurate advice along with your sponsors and your people. I'm going to introduce you as well. It's Michael Davies here, but he is just about to join us. He'll be joining us in 5 minutes, and he will tell us a little bit about another topic. So today we're going to talk about non-lucrative visa and the importance of doing things properly beforehand. Second, you have a lot of questions about the tax implication of your non-lucrative visa. And then third, Michael Davies will speak about the importance of making wills if you're going to become resident in Spain. Okay, I'm going to leave you here with Pedro, who will start telling you a little bit about how to obtain non-lucrative visa. And the time we're going to do today is going to be an hour and a half. It's the first time we're going to do so much time because we think it's important. Questions, Pedro, about non-lucrative visa, about taxes, and about wills. We don't have probably enough time to answer all of them, but we are doing an extra webinar today from our actually office in Alicante, and is pretty much to give you as much as we could give today. So Pedro, over to you.
Well, thank you, Ignacio. Obviously, we are going to be focused today in order to help you to understand, summarize the process of obtaining to submit the non-lucrative visa. So don't panic. You are going to learn. Obviously, we will be happy that if you have any question that something has not been duly explained, please make all the questions that you may have, and we will properly answer them as much as we can. Okay, as Ignacio has said, the non-lucrative visa is one of the important visas that was created in Spain many years ago and was focused for those who were going to retire in Spain. So in order to retire means, well, obviously that is not going to work. So this visa is focused on people that are not going to work. You are not allowed to work in Spain. I will make some specifications about that, but this is the first thing you need to understand. It's a visa that is not allowed to work in Spain. Okay, let's put some writing here in the desk. I mean, the non-lucrative visa will say that it's NLV. So to be a little bit more brief on this. And the first thing is about you are not allowed to work. So what if someone wants to come to Spain and say, well, I would like to work in Spain, I would like to work digitally, telematic with the computers. As many people is right now thinking about that, coming to Spain, I will be still working in my home country, and I'm not going to get any job in Spain, so I will not be working in Spain. That is going to be a rejection if I apply for a non-lucrative visa. Well, the criteria is different from Spanish consulates and other ones, but the important thing is that you are not allowed to work in Spain. And for Spanish companies, there are some resolutions by judges that says if you are working outside, if you are working in employment that is outside, then you will be able to get the non-lucrative visa if, and that is an important point, if you have enough financial means without the income that comes from work in order to live in Spain without working. That's an important issue. So let's go for the financial means. So that is the first, I would say, first requirement. Financial means. Sorry about my wording. Okay, I'll try to do my best. So financial means. You need to show to the Spanish authorities that you have enough money to live in Spain. What is the minimum amount that you need to show to the Spanish authorities that you have enough money to live in Spain? Well, there is some percentage and there's some figures, but I will give you like a lump sum that it will be like easier to understand. For one person, will be 27,000 euros. And each family member will be 7,000 euros. And this is per year. Okay, so for the first application, whenever you do it, it is going to be for 1 year term. So in the application that you need to show financial means, you need to show that the principal application has at least 27,000 euros in savings on kind of income that is like guaranteed, like pensions, for example, and or altogether, or and any family member, spouse, children, 7,000 euros. Okay, what happens if, and we will go through that if we have time, for whenever there is going to be renewed. Notice that the non-lucrative visa, when you apply for that, you firstly apply for 1 year. But before 60 days, the deadline when you need to renew, also could be after 90 days, but let's think about these 60 days. You need to renew that, and you need to apply for the following 2 years, and then so on, another 2 years, and then 5 years. But in this stage, you need to show 2 years. You still need to show and prove and guarantee and show and proof of law that you have this money per year. Okay, but also for the renewal for 2 years. Okay, that's important to understand. So the first requirement is financial means. Obviously, we are focused, and we already said that this visa, you are not allowed to work. It's been working a lot, the Spanish government, in order to approve, and will be very soon, I understand, a visa where it's going to be attract a digital and nomad in order to come to Spain without work outside of Spain and have attraction in order to obtain visa rapidly and attraction in taxes, which is really good, which I understand we will be speaking about taxes also in later. Okay, well, first thing is financial means. Okay, what is the second requirement? Let me just put here. The second requirement that is going to be important about the criminal records. It's an important certification. It's made by public institutions. We normally recommend this to be done in the website is ACRO, ACRO in the UK, but this could be done in different countries, in the US or in Canada. There's a federal or a state. I mean, it doesn't, all the countries which are not European Union countries has its own institutions in order to obtain the non-lucrative, the criminal records. Notice that the non-lucrative visa is just for non-European Union citizens that do not have residency in the European Union right now. Okay, so the criminal records do not have to have any criminal records in the last 5 years. What happens sometimes is that appears criminal record, even though it's a small one, happen maybe 8, 10, 12, 15 years. So we recommend in order to eliminate that kind of record. And if it cannot be done, then we have to argue in the immigration office in order to clean that in some way that is not in the last 5 years any criminal record. But it's important that document, which is a public document, to show that you don't have any criminal record in the last 5 years. What is the third, I would say, important one? Yeah, more than that, more than 3, but what is the third or important one is the access to important. In Spain, we have a very good health system that could be private or public. In case you have a right in your home country, in order to have a right and it's recognized public health system access, in order to come to Spain and have the same right to have access in the public system in Spain, that's perfect. There are some countries that have that. There are some people that has that. That's perfect. What we recommend normally at the beginning in order to go straightforward is to get an insurance policy to have access to the private health for the first year. And then whenever it's going to be renewed, maybe change into the public system. According to what is the payment is done, what is the kind of service that you want, what is the place that you are living in Spain. And maybe it has a good hospital near you, or maybe it's better to do it in a private system, which is also good. A health system in Spain, private or public, is extremely good. Okay, so that 3 requirements are extremely important: financial means and criminal records and health. Public documents like criminal records, or like a couple, a marriage that is applying for non-lucrative visa, has to show the marriage certificate, which is also a public document. Or children, you need to bring or attach the birth certificate. That's also extremely important. Those documents, which are public documents, need to be stamped with the Hague apostille. It needs to be stamped with the Hague apostille, and then needs to be sworn translation. Okay, that basically these are the 3 important requirements, and not allowed to work, even though right now it is that you are able to work in Spain with a company which is outside Spain. There is another requirement, which is a medical certification for the International Health Regulation from 2005, which obviously, if you don't have any high virus transmission illness, then I mean, obviously you will obtain that in order to enter in Spain. Apart from that, this application form, and there is the copy of the passports and many other small requirements, but this is the important ones. Okay. And as I said, the first year when you apply for that is for 1 year plus you. And 60 days before you is the deadline, you have to renew it for a couple of years more. Requirement to renew the non-lucrative visa. This is one of the questions that always is made. Do I have to be resident in Spain to renew? Yes, you have to stay more than 183 days. Unless that, you will not be able to renew, and you have to start the process again. Okay, that's important. Obviously, if you stay in Spain, and it's going to be explained by Ignacio, to be resident in Spain, you have to be more than half of a year, or natural year, from the 1st of January to the 31st of December. Okay, so non-lucrative visa. Do I have to, or do you have to buy a property in order to obtain non-lucrative visa? The answer is no. You can rent, you can buy, or you have already bought property. That's perfect, but there is no must. That's different from the golden visa, where you have to invest in a property as a minimum of 500,000 euros. Okay, I think at least just to start, Ignacio, obviously we will be answering you all the questions, all the important questions that you may have. And well, one more thing about when, I mean, what is the process, what timeline is the process of applying for the non-lucrative visa? Okay, once you get all the documents, and you apply for an appointment for the Spanish consulate, then the Spanish consulate may take, I would say, between 1 or 2 months, has at least 3 months in order to answer you. But let's say that it will be taken around 2 months, and then you have a month to go and collect the visa, and then you will be given a 90 days period to entry in Spain. It means that whenever you enter in Spain will be your, when you land into Spain will be your first day that you are residing in Spain. After that, you will have time. Normally, when it says it's 30 days, but it could be a little bit more, no problem with that, to get the TIE card. Obviously, in our law firm, we guide all the clients for checking all the documents. And obviously, whenever you land into Spain, we guide you in order to bring all the documents into the immigration office with you. Okay, so it takes around, I would say, between 3 and 5 months. It's going to depend on the resolutions by the immigration office and the Spanish consulate. Okay, Ignacio, I think it's more or less a brief and summarized information in order to start.
Yes, okay, Pedro, thank you. What we could do now is, Pedro gave you a very basic guidelines to apply for non-lucrative visa. Obviously, Pedro, we're having a lot of questions now in the chat. I'm going to introduce here Michael. Hello, Michael. Can you hear us now?
Hello, Pedro. Hello, Richard. Hello, everyone. Good afternoon.
Thank you very much, Michael, for joining us today and spend this hour and a half with us, giving your expertise. You are an expert on probate, and later on, if you could be kind enough, you could tell us a little bit about tips, what you will give to all those residents who will come to Spain, and about wills, etc., etc. Okay, so thank you for joining us, Michael, and I'm going to just start now talking about the tax implications about being fiscal resident in Spain, as Pedro stated. Okay, now let me just probably explain certain things about the non-lucrative visa, and obviously we didn't talk about the golden visa, because the golden visa as well is something completely more, we'll call it wider, and probably a bit more beneficial in certain aspects, you see, because there is some more requirements, but different requirements. But I don't want you to get lost with the difference here. As Pedro stated before, most of you will ask us, when am I a fiscal resident in Spain? And I'm going to try to make it very, very simple, because we get, and I don't know whether Michael gets it, I'm sure he will as well, get so many questions, because it's all tied in, and everything is related to applying for the visa, whatever it is. And then the next question, or very linked, is what about my taxes and do tax planning? Because making decisions or being advised here I always recommend to take independent legal advice and fiscal advice. And the amount, Pedro and Michael, the amount of appointments we have about this, and we're saving a lot of money to people just giving advice. And I think it's quite important to get this right and to make the right decision. Right, let's say this will be 2021, right? And then you are here right in the middle. We could say 1st of July, right? For you to understand, 1st of July, right? A lot of you might say, Ignacio, I want to apply for non-lucrative visa. When is the right time to do it? Taking into account the tax implications. Why I say that? A lot of people, and correct me if I'm wrong, Michael and Pedro, a lot of people might say, I'm selling in the UK, I'm selling in the US, I'm selling abroad, and I want to retire here in Spain, but I don't want to make any mistakes. I want to do it properly. I want to do everything and do my homework before. So that's why it's so important, all these appointments that we're having on the video conference room. And I think, and I'm very happy, Pedro, Michael, that we're saving a lot of money given the right information, because sometimes you get this situation where it's too late. And that's why we're doing all these webinars, so you could get it all right. So Pedro, Michael, well, let's say that you arrive in November 2021, or you're getting your TIE in 2021. And the question that I will make you in the appointment is, what is the date of your TIE? Because that's the first evidence you could use in Spain to prove that you are resident in Spain. Tax office will not allow you to connect into the system unless you provide a copy of your TIE. And now, to get a fiscal certificate, they still request you to get bank statements, water and utility bills, okay? Obviously, if you do certain forms through, then you will be registered in the system. But it is very important, the first question, when did I get my TIE? Well, the date, yeah, Pedro, the date basically. If you manage to get it here, right, you're in the first semester, and obviously, if you get it here, and the question I will say, do you stay more than 6 months, as Pedro stated, 183 days, then the answer is that in the next calendar year, 2022, you'll have to do your tax declaration because you've been here more than 183 days in Spain, right? As Pedro stated, the non-lucrative visa requests you to stay minimum of 6 months. But now you could get your non-lucrative visa here, 2021, and here. And don't get confused by the immigration rules or the tax rules. They are related, but they're not the same, okay? So you could plan in advance. I had a few clients today saying, Ignacio, I'm trying to cash my pension, and if I cash it now, would it be taxed in Spain? And the answer is depends whether you cash it and you are considered as a non-tax resident. So if you cash your pension in November 2021, you got your TIE, and therefore in 2021, you are non-fiscal resident in Spain. During this calendar year, because Spain works from a tax from January to December, right? So January from December, tax calendar year. Immigration, you could come anytime you like, but depending on when you arrive to Spain here, as Pedro stated, and get your TIE number, then you start having an evidence that you are resident in Spain. So you could get your TIE in 2021, November, obviously November and December. In a calendar year, you only stay 2 months in Spain, and you are therefore considered as a non-tax code in Spain. However, you carry on living in Spain, January, February, March, and then you stay more than 6 months. Therefore, 2022, you will be a tax resident. Well, you will be doing the tax declaration. So in 2023, because you always do 1 year in behind, okay? So in 2023, you do 2022, 2022, you do 2021. So typical question here. I got my TIE in this date, November 21. Am I a tax resident? Well, unless you did stay longer and you have a lot of evidence, the tax office will only consider you from this starting date. But again, it is a matter of evidence. November. So 2021, you will be a no tax code. 2022, you will be more than 6 months. And then your declaration, you will do 2023. Right. For those who are interested to apply for non-lucrative visa, I recommend you to do tax planning as well. It's not only about immigration, it's about your financial assets around the world. And do tax planning, because probably if you do it properly and you plan ahead, you can start applying for non-lucrative visa, but work and control your calendar years with the tax implications, and therefore you will not be taxed. For example, typical thing of selling the property abroad, some questions about whether they will pay capital gain tax here or not. That's a different question we get. Or for example, if I do a drawdown of 25%, I get the question, that's tax-free in the UK. Is it in Spain? Well, in Spain as resident, you don't have that. Okay, so if you want to use that allowances abroad, what I recommend you to do it is do it before in your home country or while you are non-resident in Spain. Now, I won't bore you too much with this, but what I'm trying to explain here is always seek, if you're worried about the tax or you want to know the scenario, try to do a tax simulation. Try to do, what if I arrive in Spain this date? What about if I arrive in this date? Okay. Pedro talked about the non-lucrative visa. And there is another visa, is not the topic today, but there is another visa, which is a golden visa. The golden visa allows you, and Pedro later on could explain a bit more the difference. And there is more visas, normal visa that it might be coming soon, and work visa, etc. But for you to understand, if you buy a property over 500,000 euros, you've got the freedom to come in and out as you wish. Okay, so the golden visa has a different requirement, but from a tax point of view, it might put you in the position of being no tax resident. It's important to consider it. But anyway, going back to the non-lucrative visa, always remember, applying for the non-lucrative visa doesn't mean tax resident at the time of arrival. January to December. What things you need to bear in mind? It will be, you will do the following year of 6 months, you'll have to do Modelo 720, which is being explained by Pedro in another webinar as well, and you can watch it in the live TV webinars panel. Income tax return, that is from April until June of every calendar year. 720 is from January to March, and then wealth tax for those, depending on the areas where you are, that you need to do an extra or parallel declaration. Okay, so I'm going to pass over now to Michael. Michael is an specialist here on probate, inheritance, wills. And once you already got your non-lucrative visa, now that you have already planned the income tax return, now probably you might say, Ignacio, is it worth it doing a will? Or tax efficient will, as is important. I'm going to pass over to Michael, and then we'll get now straight on the questions which we've got, and you can send us through the panel and try to answer all of them as along with Richard, that he has a lot of them from Brexpats. Over to you, Michael.
Hello, can everyone hear me? Ignacio, Pedro?
Yes, we can hear you.
Very good, excellent. Okay, well, that's a fantastic presentation that you've just done there. Fantastic. Okay, let me see if I can explain then to our viewers the difference between being a resident and being a non-resident, and how it affects people both at the time of making a Spanish will and at the time of accepting an inheritance. And we're going to explain everything from 2 points of view. The civil point of view, in other words, who receives what and how can you distribute the estate, and second, the inheritance tax implications. Okay, so let's start off with when you make a will. When you, if you become a resident in Spain, making a will becomes extra important because, sorry, switch this off. Because if under Directive 650/2012, if you are a resident in Spain, if you don't make a Spanish will, and the inheritance is intestate, they're going to have to apply Spanish law to how your estate is distributed if you are a resident. Because what Directive 650/2012 actually says is that if you are a national of other country living in Spain, you can make a will choosing your own, stating on the will here that you choose your national law to allow you to distribute your estate however you like. So for example, English couples tend to leave everything to each other in the first step. Spanish people can't do that because there's a system of obligatory heirs. So if you are a non-resident of Spain and still resident in the UK, if you are unlucky and haven't made a will and pass away, it will be English law that determines how the estate is distributed, and that will mean that the next of kin would be the spouse. If you're a resident in Spain and you happen to pass away, intestate and you're a resident in Spain and have not done a will, automatically Spanish system of obligatory heirs apply, which means that it's your children that would receive 2/3 of the estate and your spouse would only receive 1/3. So in all cases, whether you're non-resident with a property in Spain or resident, we always advise to make a Spanish will to cover Spanish assets because it's going to be much simpler and more straightforward to go to probate. But if you're a resident, it's even more important because otherwise, if you die intestate, 2/3 of the estate would go down to the children eventually and not to your spouse. Solution: when you become a resident, you make a simple will. You can do a mirrored will like in the UK, but you have to make an express choice of law. This is called Directive 650/2012 or Brussels 4. It's also known as Brussels 4. There's plenty, if you read about it on the internet, all lawyers that handle conveyancing and deal with foreigners, we all know about it. And automatically, when you make a will and you tell your lawyer that you want to leave everything to each other, for example, and then down to the kids, he'll say, no problem. Why? Because one of the clauses in the will say, conforming to Directive 650/2012, I expressly choose my national law, English law, to determine how I can distribute my estate. And then you can go on to leave things to whoever you like. So from the will point of view, if you become a resident, it's very, very important to make a Spanish will. It's important also if you're a non-resident, but more important if you become a resident. Now, from the probate point of view, where it's going to make a difference is with how the inheritance tax is declared. Because in Spain, the level of inheritance tax depends on, is all to do with where the beneficiary is a resident, not where the deceased is resident, like in the UK. So if you are a resident in Spain, and you're going to obviously be a resident in one of the autonomous regions of Spain, either in the Valencia region, Andalusia region, Balearic region, each region of Spain has got different levels of exemption for inheritance tax. So if you're a resident in one of those regions, when your lawyer does your inheritance tax return, there's two things he'll consider. One is that as a resident that's a beneficiary, as a beneficiary resident in Spain, you have to declare what you receive worldwide and not just what you receive in Spain. And the second thing to consider is that your lawyer, if he knows what he's doing, will apply all the exemptions applicable to you. And those will be the ones that the ones of the region where you are resident. Okay. Now, if you are a non-resident of Spain, then it works in a different way. The first thing is that you only declare the assets that you inherit that are actually in Spain. You don't declare the other assets from other countries. And the second thing is that you apply the exemption rates available in the region of Spain where the majority of the Spanish assets are situated. Okay, now, if you look at this up on the internet, you'll go crazy because each region of Spain has got their own exemptions. And up to the 7th of July of last year, those exemptions could only be claimed by non-residents of Spain that were resident within the EU. But since the 7th of July of last year, if you are a resident in a third country, not third world country, in a third country like the UK, Australia or Canada, even though sometimes it's feeling like that lately when we get to the airports, but you can now, since the 7th of July, you can now apply the exemptions of the region where the assets are situated, even if you're a beneficiary, for example, resident in the UK, Canada, Australia, etc. So this is something that, as you know, I could go on all day talking about because it's a subject that I like a lot. But I think those are the basic differences between being a resident and a non-resident when it comes to wills and inheritance tax.
Okay, thank you very much, Michael. Thank you very much. Now we're having a lot of questions here. Michael, please feel free to send in the chat your email address. Richard, I think you already answered to one of the questions in the panel, but feel free to put your email, or if you prefer Messenger, that will be great. And before going into all these questions, Richard, now we're going to just come into questions and answer, which I think they are important. Okay, I know we're having citizens from all around the world. We're having here, as one friend stated here, we've got USA, we've got from Egypt, we've got from Germany. Please feel free to send us your nationality or where you're writing. So probably we could give you a more specific advice if necessary. Right. Now I try to summarize the tax. The tax is a big field. I know we're having questions about the US. Yes, we are familiar with the US tax system. It's a bit more complex than dealing with the UK. I don't think we could cover the whole lot, but probably we could give you some tips of advice. Now, Richard, could you please, you from the Non-lucrative Association, Brexpats in Spain, could you please bring to the panel the questions that most of you guys might have to be uncertain, or probably something that we could clarify, and we could start reading the questions. Okay, over to you, Richard.
Okay, thank you, Ignacio. As you know, Brexpats in Spain has been assisting people for, what, 5 years now, and we encounter many issues, the majority of which are caused by misinformation. And that's the only way of describing this. There is so much rumour and misinformation going around that people are not only confused, but they often end up going down the wrong route in the wrong direction or getting it wrong and thus getting refused. And that's where they should come to people like yourselves or us to get the right information in the first place. Now, one of the things that initially comes up is the number of people who think if they apply for an NLV, that's it. It's done. They don't have to do anything else. They can come into Spain, stay for a year, and if they don't, if they want to remain as a swallow, not a derogatory term, they then apply for another NLV at the end of the year. Now, this is completely wrong. Pedro has already explained that when you get to Spain, you have to apply for a TIE, the Tarjeta de Identidad Extranjero. You have to apply for it. You can't just sit with an NLV and think you can live in Spain. So that's the first point. Some people seem to think that they can obtain a TIE and use it just to extend their stay in Spain, not as a resident, just to extend their stay. Again, this is wrong. If you obtain a TIE, you are asking to be a resident of Spain. It's as simple as that. Tax is an issue, which you, Ignacio, explained so well, but there is a specific point here. Some people are selling their houses in the UK in order to raise the money to apply for the NLV. Now, the question that has been put to us many times, is it safer to sell the house in the UK, get the money into the bank, or sell the house when they get out here? And that comes into the tax issue and paying capital gains tax. So can I put that one back to you specifically now, Ignacio?
Right. Okay, Richard. Right. Let me just be very brief here and not confuse very much. I will send you now in the blog. I will send you in the blog an article, a specific article about capital gain tax. Okay. So, Richard, going back to the situation which is going to happen to a lot of your members, okay? People after the 1st of July with a TIE here, right? All these people, I'm pretty sure most of them here, they're all going to be non-lucrative visas. But this year, that's if we're talking about here, right? If we're talking about, okay, November 20 and 21, this one, probably I made it wrong, is 2022, and then you do it 2023. So, Richard, you're selling the property here, 2021, right? 2021, and you are non-resident in Spain. If you're non-resident here in 2021, as you are a non-tax code in Spain, there is nothing to worry about that. Now, what happened if by any reason it happens, you come November 2021, but you didn't manage to sell the property, but you really want to sell the property afterwards because you have the 37,000 euros that Pedro stated, and you sold the property, say, I really want to come, but I sold it here in February. And here is a big question normally. And I will send you the article so people could read it in the due course. You sell it February 2022, while you are a tax resident in Spain because you got it in November 2021. You stay all the way through, and here comes the issue. And here is where we get people questioning and worrying. 2023, you need to do the 720. 2023, you need to do the income tax return. And Richard, here, you're making a big profit because you bought it for £100,000 and you're selling for £200,000. And then you're saying, wow, I need to declare that. Is it taxable in Spain? Right, there is a specific rule that if you sell within the 2 years, and reinvest the same amount of money, we're talking about below 65. If you are over 65, selling the main property is exempt, okay? Whatever profit you make. So you sell here, whatever hundred or thousands of euros you make is exempt over 65, okay? Now, if you're below 65, you need to sell and reinvest it within the 2 years to be exempt. Because if you don't do it within the 2 years from selling, you'll be taxed on capital gain tax. And that will be 19 up to 6,000 euros profit. From 6,000 to 50,000 is 21%. From 50,000 to 200 is 23. And from 200,000 euros profit onwards is 26 as it states. Now, let me tell you one tip of advice here. Everything we're saying here is as it stays today with regards to taxes in general. So always watch and read or speak to the lawyer at the time of your decision, okay? So you know tax is very changing around. So Richard, I don't know if I did answer this question. Below 65, you need to reinvest it, right? If you are over 65, selling the main property, you will be exempt. Is that basically the main question, Richard?
Yes, you answered it perfectly. Thank you for that.
Okay, I'll send you the text here so people can read. Please carry on, Richard, with your questions.
Okay. Now, Pedro, earning while getting an NLV. Now, I think you explained perfectly in your presentation that they can rent out a property in the UK, and can they use that rental figure as part of their NLV application?
Okay, well, that's a good question. Obviously, when we show the financial means into the immigration office, into the Spanish consulate, it says, the rule says, or you show savings or you show income. If it can be mixed, obviously at the end, you need to show that you have enough money to live in Spain. About property rental, it means that you're gonna focus, you're gonna be guaranteed to get those income depending on the tenant, if it pays you or not. And you know what problem we have in Spain sometimes with tenants that at the end may not pay, and it takes a little bit more time in order to reject them out of the property. And obviously the Spanish authorities, immigration office says, well, you are not guaranteed that you're going to get that income per year because of the property rentals. So what I always suggest is obviously savings plus some property rentals, but obviously the savings needs to be very close to the minimum amount. I also have to say that depending on the visa-type, depending on the Spanish consulate, this may be rejected or not. What is clear is that if you have enough savings or pensions that covers those 34,000 euros, you will be obtaining the non-lucrative visa, or maybe it is rejected and you will be able to get it once you appeal. Because it could happen also that even though you have enough money about this minimum amount that we've said, maybe also rejected, or also maybe have to be subsidized. But the property rentals or some dividends that you may get for a company that you get, or some interests, those can count, but will not be counting as much as the rest of the savings or any other pension that you may get. It is a subjective criteria, even though we say a stated amount, this minimum amount is 34,000 euros, this is a subjective criteria, okay?
Okay, thank you very much for that. That's explained that perfectly. Now, the next one is a rumor, misinformation again. I think we need to confirm to people at the moment, when you do the first year, if it's a single person, it is 27,000. When you renew, you are renewing for 2 years and it is 54,000 required. And that has not changed at the moment, despite all the rumours to the contrary. People are saying that it's been reduced to 27,000. But at the moment, can we please confirm that it hasn't been reduced?
It hasn't. I mean, as much as we know, obviously you need to, at the end, the second, once you renew, obviously it's for the period of 2 years, and that time you have to obviously to show that you have enough money to live in Spain without working. It's a non-lucrative visa, and for a 2 years is this 27,000 euros times 2. So it will be 54,000 euros, as you say.
Okay, that's perfect again. Now, the last question on rental properties in the UK. People are paying tax in the UK on the rental income, and they are offsetting the costs of doing it, you know, the repairs, etc. How does that apply in Spain if they are resident and renting properties out in the UK?
Okay, Richard, I guess people are worried on the tax implication about renting, correct?
Yes.
Is that correct? Yes.
That's correct.
Now, I normally say that a lot of people don't know renting in Spain has a big allowance. You will only be taxed in Spain on the 40% of the net, as long as you rent it out long term, right? So I always say 10,000 euros income minus 3,000 euros expenses. Then the dual taxation treaty allows you to include here, if you're being taxed abroad, the tax, and whatever is the net figure, let's say will be the, I don't know what will tax, but let's say if the tax was just, let's say 1,000, you have to pay. So the net figure between husband and wife will be 6,000. So 6,000, 3,000 and 3,000 on every individual, okay? Now, from these 3,000, Richard, you will only be taxed, because we're talking about the net, you will only be taxed on your marginal rate at 40% of the net. And a lot of people say, oh, Ignacio, that's very, very good, because in different countries it's more expensive. That's why sometimes, depending on the scenario, I might recommend, Pedro, do you need to sell the property? Not really. Well, sometimes you're going to be hit with a big capital gain tax, which you really don't need to sell. And renting is very well treated. But Richard, this is the answer. They could include expenses, right? We're talking about renting. For capital gain tax is a different thing. I don't know if you were going through that question as well, were you?
Yeah, it was going to come up, yes.
Yeah, well, let me just tell you. So here on the rental, just put this figure, but again, double check with your lawyer at the time of doing your income tax return, because taxes vary and is very sometimes uncertain to say this is it, because it might change, okay? The new income tax return law still hasn't been approved yet for this year, but it's going to come very, very soon, okay? We're going to start from the 1st of April to the 30th of March, okay? Now, Richard, let's say you're selling your property abroad and you're saying, Ignacio, I was resident when I sold it, and unfortunately I didn't arrive on time and I need to pay, because, you know, if you do it out of the time, out of the 2 years, then you need to pay taxes because your main home will be Spain. After 2 years, you cannot deduct anything, and therefore you need to pay the tax. There is a sliding scale. I will put you here on the post, as I said, from 19% to the 26%. That has been recently changed. There was not 26% in the old days. And what you need to do, you selling abroad, you will have to declare it on the 7/20 of the following year. So if you're selling 2022, you'll have to declare it in 7/20, 2023, and you'll have to put purchase value, let's say 100,000, you sold it for 200,000. So you have 100,000 euros profit, right? And to work it out, you need to have purchase expenses abroad, wherever you are, any country where you are, solicitors fees, estate agent fees, taxes, everything with proper invoice. So you've got the 100,000 euros profit, but you need to include purchase value, expenses on the purchase value, selling value, expenses on the selling value, and then you get a net figure, Richard, and that it will be taxed 19%. Okay, that's when you are selling, okay, for non-resident here. Okay, now, as I said, as resident, you'll have 19, 21, 23, 26. Okay, I don't know if you were coming with that question, Richard.
Thank you for answering it, Ignacio. One of the other questions that I've got is for people who have obtained an NLV, obtained their TIE, and have decided that they can't afford to live in Spain and are going to have to work. Can they exchange their NLV for a different type of visa?
Yeah, obviously the time in order to do that would be on the renewal. Obviously it can be changed into a non-lucrative visa into a working visa on whenever that year has finished. And at the time of renewal, you have to obviously to apply and submit and fulfill all the requirements of a working visa, which means that through a self-employment or through a company that wants to employ you. There are different requirements on that, but at the end, as a self-employment, you need to conduct through a business plan perfectly done in order to be attractive, in order to create employment and in Spain, or is a self-employment. If it is employment in a company, obviously it needs to have some requirements that there is no residence in Spain that has the same ability in order to work in that company. But basically is that obviously can be changed from non-lucrative visa to a working visa. And we sometimes clients, they decide through a non-lucrative visa change into a working visa. Normally it's a self-employment visa and it works well. I mean, as much as you fulfill all the requirements, it's okay.
Okay, thank you for that, Pedro. That concludes the questions that had been sent to me over the last few weeks. Thank you for that. I would sum up from our point of view that one of the critical things to do is not just to blindly go ahead to getting an NLV, but to seek advice and do tax planning and organising before you commit yourself. And this is the information we're giving out to everybody. Get everything in place and understand what you're doing before you do it. Now, I don't know, Ignacio, if you want me to go on with the questions we got in front of us, or if you're going to just deal with them.
Right, yeah, we could carry on. I'm sure, I don't know if Michael wants to say anything, because he does a lot of inheritance tax planning as well.
There's two questions on the chat here, one at 4:30, the one at 4:37 and the one at, they're both at 4:37. Those two questions, one from Alexander Hutton and another one from Deepak. Both those questions are about sort of wills. The question number one, I'm sure you've heard this many, many times. Do trusts work in Spain? It says for Michael. Well, the short answer to that is no, they don't. You must never use a trust never try and create a trust using a Spanish will. even if you've chosen English law on the will. You should never do it. It will turn into a nightmare when you come to go to probate. And this light goes in with the second question is, can a foreign will be used in Spain? Well, technically it can, but it just sort of in the best case scenario, it will cost you about double and take about 10 months instead of 3 months. But the solicitor's fees, for example, in our case, we normally charge about, if everything is okay, it still costs you about double in solicitor's fees if there's no Spanish will. But also, it can lead to really bad problems. In other words, if you've got a will in the UK that says for worldwide assets, and it mentions the word trust, for example, then those wills can turn into a nightmare to convalidate and create lots of problems with the Inheritance Tax Office. And in general, in any case, you've got to take the will, go to probate in the UK, then you've got to convalidate it, Hague's Apostle, official translation, sometimes certificates of law. It just works out much more expensive. We've written about this plenty of times. I'm sure you guys have as well. All Spanish lawyers that deal with foreigners all recommend the same thing, or they should do, and that is make one will in each country where you have assets.
Okay. Thank you, Michael, very much. I have a question here about golden visa. We didn't cover that. Pedro, could you please give us a little bit of advice here on before we just pass on questions? What about golden visa, Pedro?
Let me find the question. Let's read it before I explain it. I'll just define it. Which is the question is been said. Is can a person who already has a resident and invest 500,000 euros in various properties can change to golden visa? Second, if a person is paying tax on his income in home country and also has income in Spain, exempt from double taxation. Okay, and let me just check if there is another one, any other question regarding golden visa. I do not see. Okay, well, that's perfect. Okay. Let me just make a brief explanation. What is the golden visa? Okay, golden visa. It is a visa that follows through an investment on property, on bank deposits, on debt, on companies, in order to obtain a visa to entry in Spain. Does this mean that with the golden visa you are going to be resident in Spain? Not as it is. I mean, you will be resident in Spain if you stay more than half of a year. I will be also explaining about the time frame, about the 6 months time that we say about the non-lucrative visa to renew, and also the 180 days, which is a natural tax year. But let's start with the golden visa. Well, the golden visa on investing on property. Okay. Well, the minimum investment is 500,000 euros. On property. Could be invested in one property, could be invested in 2, 3, as many properties as you want, but minimum you have to invest 500,000 euros from your pocket, from free, without any charges, without any mortgage. Question, what if I want to buy a property which the price is 800,000 euros? Can I apply for the golden visa if I'm applying a loan with a bank, a mortgage of 300,000 euros? At the end, if you're going to bring on the purchase price 500,000 euros, you are investing 500,000 euros, even though the price is 800,000 euros and the mortgage is 300,000 euros. So the answer is yes, you will be able to obtain the golden visa. So can be bought 1, 2, 3 properties. It doesn't matter if it's a land, a commercial, an apartment, a villa. Just has to be property. And that property needs to be, at least you need to show and prove that you have invested 500,000 euros. Okay. And well, one of the questions that is also made to us many times is, okay, what if I bought a property some years ago? That property is included in the golden visa. Well, from the date of 29th of September 2017, if you have bought a property in Spain from that date until now, okay, that property can be brought into to be added in order to obtain the golden visa. Imagine that if you bought a property of, let's say, 400,000 euros, some years ago, after this date, you will be able to invest another 100,000 euros and get the golden visa. Okay. And the golden visa has the same requirements more or less as a non-lucrative visa, as a criminal record. You need to show also the financial means. And obviously you need to have an insurance, or public or private insurance. That I already explained. Okay, but important issue about the time frame. I presume there is also been asked in the chat, which says the difference between what is, because when we, Ignacio, when we speak about the golden visa, all this time frame about the 180 days, I understand it's sometimes a little bit difficult for us to explain. And well, let's try to see that, which is the, okay. Right now we are in 2022. Okay, where we are now in this year, we are now in March. Okay. What if we apply, someone applies right now for the non-lucrative visa? I'm gonna erase this just to, okay, 2023. So this shows that from the 1st of January to the 31st of December. Okay, as well as here, because in Spain we have a natural year from the 1st of January to 31st of December for tax year. What if someone applies for non-lucrative visa in March, and now it's got, let's say, after, as Ignacio has explained, after in the second semester, for example, let's say in September, October of 2022, then let's say that it will land into Spain in the 15th of October of 2022. Is the second semester. Okay, this year, as this, so it is a presumption that these days is going to be less than 183 days. On this year, then will be non-resident for tax purposes. So it covers that even though you obtain, residency here, this period of time until here, you are resident, you are authorized to be resident in Spain, but you are non-resident for tax purposes. This is important in case that you sold a property or you withdraw some money, you mature some investment, and obviously you will not be able to do anything with tax office in Spain because you are non-resident for tax purposes, even though you are resident as an immigration authorization. Okay, but what happened with the non-lucrative visa? You need to renew the following year on the 15th of October. And you need to do, as I explained, that 60 days before. Okay, so tax year from 1st of January to 31st of December. If you spend more than 183 days, then you are tax resident. 1 year authorization of residency. You have to live in Spain more than half of the time that you are authorized to live in Spain, which means that from this date, 5th of October to 15th of October 2023, well, you have to spend more than 183 days. Because if you don't show this, here, whenever you're going to renew it, it will be rejected. Okay, that's a time frame that I know that sometimes okay, well, it's half of a year. What is, obviously you need to spend here, again, will be another issue about 183 days, that if you are more than 183 days here, you will be tax resident.
But Pedro, that's quite interesting because some people might have their residencia here, be non-tax resident here,
exactly,
and they still have their TIE. The issue will come here
exactly
in 2023.
Exactly.
So that's what Pedro is saying. He's doing about tax planning and on all the fields, and I think that's quite important. People don't realize.
So golden visa, it doesn't mean that you will not have to. Well, if I obtain golden visa, I will not be able to make any tax issues in Spain. No, that's not true. If you spend more than 183 days in Spain on a natural year, then you are tax resident for, or you will have the obligation to declare your worldwide income in Spain. If you invest in property 500,000 euros minimum and you are not resident for tax purposes because you are less than 180 days, you have to make a non-resident tax because you own a property in Spain. I'm sure that Michael will be able to explain a little bit about that.
Yeah, I think Michael has some question, and if he could just run later on that as well. Michael, over to you.
I'd like to take the opportunity to, I've got Pedro online here, and he can't escape, to ask him a challenging question. I know he's the absolute expert in Spain on golden visas, so I was going to try and call him, but anyway, I've got him online now, so perfect. Look, we've got a case of a client that he says the following. This is in relation to what the investment has to be, okay? Because his situation is that 7 years ago, he bought a property, and I can't remember the exact numbers, but the gist of it is the same. He bought a property that's for 700,000 euro, okay? But he put down 450,000 euro and took out a mortgage on the rest 7 years ago, okay? So he says to me, Michael, I only put down 450,000 euro, but the capital repayments on the mortgage would now take me well over the 500,000 euro. Do the capital repayments on the mortgage count towards the investment or not?
Well, the question really, I mean, it has been partially cancelled, which is on the capital payments that he has done. And if it covers more than 500,000 euros of the investment, that will be able to be shown. The problem with that is that the certifications on the land registry has to show that the minimum investment is 500,000 euros. It happens sometimes, as this question that you're saying, the price 700,000 euros, your client put from the pocket 450,000 euros and the rest of mortgage. So if he has been paid some capital, and if it has been cancelled, or what I suggest or recommend, he says, okay, partially I have cancelled some part of the mortgage. I need to cancel that in the land registry or in the notary office, and then in the land registry, it will be shown.
He can't do that. He can't do that because he's got to
cancel that partial amount, and the bank goes there and the notary. That will not happen because it will be the mortgage will be there, and it will not happen. So you need to make a partial, without, I mean, obviously the best thing is just to say, well, I have cancelled the mortgage. That's perfect. We'll be able to do that.
The bank won't collaborate with that, Pedro. I don't think so. No, all he's got to show, what he's got to show is he can get all his statements from his mortgage repayments, where it shows what was interest, what was capital over those 7 years, and that's what he's got.
That will not work, because one of the proof of our investment is the land registry certification. I need to show that the investment is more than 500,000 euros with the land registry certificate.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay, Richard, would you like to carry on? Thank you, Michael. Michael, later on, if you could just give us a little bit of advice on what you recommend about inheritance tax planning, because I know that's important. That's a good topic, and I know you do as well. But do you want to mention something now, or we pass it over to Richard?
Whatever you can prefer. I can talk about inheritance tax now or after Richard. Doesn't matter. Whenever you choose.
All right, Richard, do you have some questions now from the panel?
Well, we've had some issues raised from the presentation we've done so far. Caroline asks us to clarify that after 2 years on the NLV, you pay, no, she's got it wrong. You initially pay 27,000 to get your NLV or have the funds available. After a year, you renew it for 2 years, which is obviously 54,000. What happens at the end of that 2 years?
Okay. Well,
what happens at year 5?
Yeah, that's a good question. Obviously, is that we have spoken about the first year and the second year and the third year. One of the requirements that we said at the beginning for the first year is, for example, the criminal records, which in the following renewals, you don't have to. And first renewal and second renewal, which is to obtain 2 years and to obtain another 2 years, the requirements, I would say, are mostly equal for the first one, but obviously financial mean are increased on showing 2 years. What happens? What about these 5 years? I already said is 1 + 2 + 2 + 5. Well, the requirements are literally down totally. I mean, the requirements of financial means are not given. The requirements for criminal records are not given. The insurance, it shows that in case that you have insurance, obviously in Spain, that's perfect. If not, it's the public. So the requirements are really, softly, it's not going to be a requirement to show you have 5 years, 34,000 euros at all. Okay.
Okay, that's brilliant. And another one that has come up, you stated quite correctly, of course, that they require private health care or an S1, of course. But it's, I think, important to mention that when they get the private health care, it must be sin co-payment. Maybe you'd like to comment on that, because that's very important. Some people have been caught out on that. And another one come in asking, can they stop the private health care after the first year and go on Comunidad Especial?
Yeah, I mean, after a year, that will be, we always recommend first year to obviously in order to go straightforward with the private insurers, unless they have a right to get directly the public system. And after a year can be done that way, can be done. We always recommend to check about the area that lives, the hospitals, doctor, if they want to do it in the public system, which is extremely good in Spain, as well as the private system. And after a year could be able to be done. The private insurance policy need to cover hospitalization without any co-payment. That's important. Obviously, right now, all the insurance companies, they have, let's say, they have like standard policies for the non-lucrative visa to cover 1 year, and it's, all the conditions are perfectly standard in order to cover and to be able to be admitted in the immigration office. One of the questions that is made also, we have clients that they already have insurance policies outside of Spain. Well, that will work just in case that company is duly inscribed, is duly authorized to work in Spain, and it covers all the situations according to the public system without any co-payment and included hospitalization. That's it. That would be two requirements that are important ones that should be shown in the insurance policy. But as I said, there are different companies. They work very well. We can recommend those companies to clients they may want to. And obviously that one other thing that is also included is about the age, and this is important, Ignacio, because some companies do not, at the end, once you are over 65, it's more difficult.
Yeah, actually, we've been handling a lot of issues here for the health, and we've been covering that, Pedro, trying to do convenio especial, especially before Brexit, we did for a lot of people. We do have the application. You need to be 1 year in the padron to qualify with that. So it's not that straightforward, but actually we manage search on and in the market to find out what companies will cover people. I think, Richard, we're having some people here saying that they're 80, etc., etc. I will highly recommend for those people to do everything planning ahead. I mean, if you are elderly people and you think you're going to have problems with the first year of health insurance, because the second year is not a problem, because we could apply after the first year, we could make the application for the second. The first year is a hard one because people are struggling to get, Pedro. And actually, we had several cases of Americans having coverage in United States, health issues here, but you really need to have the policy, as Pedro stated, stipulating exactly what covers, what doesn't cover, etc., etc. And sometimes, Pedro, it gives problem because you need to translate the policy. Sometimes they will give you more issues than having the Spanish policy. So it is a hot topic there, Richard. It is actually the fact of the health is something quite important if you're going to apply for the non-lucrative visa, and I think that will be, Pedro, on top number one, because it will be the most difficult thing to apply. Okay, Richard, we don't have much time. Do you want to just make, and then I can pass it on to Michael. Do you want to mention any other question, Richard, about Brexpats or the chat? And then I can pass over to Michael.
There's one quickly that's come in, and that is again clarification of what's already been said. But it's been asked, whilst somebody can rent out property in the UK and take the money, and that would be allowed under the NLV, could they buy property in Spain and do the same thing?
Well, Richard, I think we spoke about that before, but obviously this is a subjective criteria. And when we say financial means, is obviously it needs to be shown, let's say from 6 months to 1 year bank statement in order to show, for example, the savings that you may have, investments, value, where you will be able to have access to that money, but also the income you may get. Obviously, the best income you may get in order to prove that you have financial means to live in Spain are the pensions, for example, or some income that you are like in most way, or you can prove is in most ways guaranteed. What happens with the property rentals, as I said, is may happen that you don't get paid, or maybe you don't rent it as the price you want, so you will not obtain that kind of income unless you prove that is guaranteed. And if you prove is a company behind that is going to pay you for some kind of guarantee, that will be important. Just to buy a property and rent it and say I'm getting, let's say, 1,000 euros per month, and then another savings from a different investment and another rental from a different property, I personally understand that will not be covered. But if you obviously, if you have at least, let's say, minimum savings, not just 34, maybe 30, maybe something, and then the rest is added to property rental, to some other savings you have, some pensions, then will be able to be added and value accordingly. But just for property rental, obviously will not be included.
No, I think
okay,
I think the specific point about that question was, under an NLV, if they rented property out in Spain, would that be counted as an income in Spain? In other words, does the NLV preclude them from renting properties in Spain?
Does the well, as I understand it, you want to say that if the income that you get from the rental can be included as an income for the application, is that right?
No. Whether they're allowed to do it. An NLV is a non-lucrative visa. You're not allowed to work in Spain. Does that count as work in Spain?
No, doesn't work as a work because it's not an activity, economic activity. You are not, like, let's say, updated into the tax office as an activity as a rental. You as a landlord that rents a property and gets some income, and you have to obviously to include those income, if it's a property in the UK or property in Spain, those income in the tax return that you do every year.
Okay. That's clear.
Okay, Richard, thank you. Michael, would you like to say anything about advice for those who are doing tax planning, buying a property in Spain, doing the non-lucrative visa, doing everything by the book? Because at the end of the day, it's going to be better, faster, cheaper, and less stressful. Would you like to comment anything from your expertise? I know you have a lot of knowledge, more than 25 years on the field in the law. And would you like to say something? Because it's always very, very valuable for all the audience. Michael,
I'm going to have a quick word. I'd like to say something about, again, inheritance tax. Inheritance tax is what we deal with, obviously. So that's what I'm going to talk about. But I do think it's something that's overlooked by people that come and buy property in Spain, at least initially. High net families do look into this very carefully, but I think everyone needs to, because there can be a big difference. People don't realize that in Spain, we've got 17 different regions, and each region has got its own levels of inheritance tax. And there can be a tremendous difference between one region and another. Now, I can't go into the detail of what taxes are paid in each region, because not only are the levels of exemption different, the criteria is different as well. So you have to go into a lot of depth depending on whether you expect to receive from your spouse or from your parent, and it can, depending on your situation, there may be more interesting one region to another. But the only thing I'd like people to take away from this is that when they buy a property in Spain, to at least briefly, look into the issue of inheritance tax, especially if you're, of an advanced age and therefore you sort of expect that you will pass away while having the asset in Spain. It's definitely worth looking into. And I wouldn't even say, buy in this region versus the other just because of the inheritance tax. But hey, if you're on the fence and not sure where to buy, and suddenly you see that in one place your widow will have to pay 70,000 and the other, if he buys in the other place, they'll only pay 2,000. Well, then you should add it into the equation. I don't know. In our case, for many years, we offer a consultation regarding the purchase of property in Spain, where we go through, amongst other things, the inheritance tax levels in the different regions. The other thing is that when you buy a property in Spain, even the transfer tax on the purchase is different depending on the region where you buy. Most people end up finding out about the different levels of transfer tax, but don't look into the situation regarding the inheritance tax, which of course is my playing field. So I think, well, why didn't these people think about it? Somebody buys a property in Spain, they're 90, they buy a massive villa in Murcia, and they've left it to their wife, and they could, if they bought it just 50 kilometers to, in Andalusia, the difference in inheritance tax on that massive villa in this particular case was over 100,000 euro. It doesn't make any sense. So I'm just saying to keep it in mind. I'm sure when people go and consult with you on buying a property in Spain, and you go through all the taxes and fees, sometimes I think just to know what they're letting themselves into regarding inheritance tax is always a good idea. I mean, the Valencia region where you are, the situation isn't bad. In Andalusia, it's extremely good. But there are some regions of Spain that are terrible for inheritance tax, absolutely terrible. And yet people are still buying there as if there was no difference. It doesn't make any sense.
That's very good advice, Michael. Actually, is always this feel on the tax is always an issue, isn't it? Because on the very old days, we had a great time on having exemptions. Now you guys have exemptions. Who knows what is going to happen in the future?
Absolutely, no, I agree. It's a moving target. Absolutely. I mean, I remember in the days when obviously I'm down here in Andalusia and you're up there in the Valencia region, where I'd lose lots of clients that I'd have to send to you so they could buy Moreira instead of Marbella because the inheritance tax was so much better up there. Now Andalusia is the best place probably in Spain for inheritance tax, but the Valencia region is still good. It's not in the old days, it just happened that Andalusia was a terrible place for inheritance tax, but now we've caught up and we're even better. But see, in those days when we used to do these transactions, and I used to have a client that would end up going and using your services for the conveyancing up in Moreira or Denia. In those days, those high net clients, they did look into this issue very carefully. The same as Spanish people, English people don't realize this, but wealthy Spanish people are very, very careful with this issue of inheritance tax and where they're going to be living when their wealthy mother or father passes away. Because, I mean, in the old days, you'd have a sort of wealthy family in Madrid, and they'd have a son that would have a great job offer down in Andalusia, and he literally just wouldn't take it because he knew that if he lived down here when his dad died in Madrid, he'd end up paying a tremendous amount of inheritance tax. So he'd say, no, I don't want to move to Andalusia. I prefer to go somewhere else, even if I get paid less. So that's how important it's always been for us in Spain, basically. Mm.
Yeah, actually, Michael, it's a good topic because some people, and I'm grateful for those who do tax planning, and they put in the equation everything, as you said, because it's important to have the facts and always do a consultation with a proper independent lawyer, and then you get the answers, and then you make your own decision. Some people, absolutely, Michael, as you know, they might say, well, I really want to leave. It's not about money. Or some people might think, I don't really care where to leave, and I do the move. But as everything is uncertain here, sometimes you could do one move and then probably change it.
That's why you move again. Hey, we've had clients, as you know, Ignacio, that moved up to Moreira and then they've moved back. It's a moving target. It's a moving target. But I mean, I just feel, you know, this example I've just given you of this 90-year-old that bought in Murcia, we just handle their estate for them. And you know, they've literally just given away over 100,000 euro simply for 50 kilometers difference. And the place where they purchased in Murcia was very similar to a place in the north of Andalusia, which would have been Oaxaca. And apparently they've been looking at both places, and in the end they got it wrong, and they bought in Murcia, which, as you know, has a terrible inheritance tax regime at the moment compared to Valencia region or Andalusia. Yeah.
Okay. All right, Michael, Richard, Michael, Pedro, thank you very much today for sharing this hour and a half of excellent advice to all the audience all around the world. We're happy to keep you updated in the law very much. I think Juanfra has a beautiful video now to share about lovely times in Spain. I hope you enjoy it. Hopefully we're going to join on the 6th of April. Another webinar, but we will update you as time goes with a busy calendar, Michael. We try our best, and hopefully see you very soon. See you in Oaxaca, Michael. Yeah?
Yeah, absolutely. Great to see you all. Bye.
Thank you, Richard. Thank you very much. See you soon. Over to Juanfran. Thank you, Juanfran.
Trust is vital when you're in another country. If you want to buy a home, set up business relationships, or apply for a residence permit, you need to be able to count on the best independent legal aid. Pellicer and Heredia is an international firm of lawyers with over 20 years experience and one single aim: for you to live at ease in Spain. In order to give you a clear, streamlined, and fast response, we work with a cross-disciplinary team of professionals specializing in the main legal fields: civil law, foreigners' affairs, business law, tax and financial law, and international law. And to ensure that you're kept informed and up to date with everything, we have 6 offices on the Eastern Coast. Whether you're from here or abroad, we will always stand by you and speak your language. Our relationship is based on openness, professionalism, and a commitment to finding legal solutions in your best interests and for your peace of mind. Pellicer and Heredia, international lawyers.